Good morning, Young Kings. Good time for your morning motivation this morning. Just got through running. Was a light run today, um, about 3.5 miles just completed. So um, continue on. Let's continue on this journey down my brokenness. And if you've seen the first two, you might get the illusion that I'm a defeated person, but that's not the case at all. I'm not defeated. I'm just kind of giving you the backdrop of what was happening in my life in the midst of navigating through various different adversities. So um, I took it from a standpoint that most people know who viewing this video probably would know me already and know some of the accomplishments I've had, but my ignorance to the fact that maybe somebody's watching this video and all they hear is this guy that's talking about being beaten, uh, being abandoned, and being rejected, and like in a defeated state. But I'm not defeated at all. I've been very blessed throughout my life. I mean, I'll highlight a few of them. I think one of my biggest accomplishment may seem like the smallest one, and that was graduating basic training, infantry basic training, because that was like my first step in the adulthood life. I mean, after graduation, we just went through that on the previous video. I couldn't go to that, so that was like a significant accomplishment to me of my first dream realized. And then I get down to my duty station and grinding hard. We went through some of the adversity there in the last video, so check that out. But I left active duty with a full scholarship, a green and gold scholarship to college. So from barely graduating high school and not being able to attend the graduation ceremony to graduating basic training and getting a full scholarship to college, I mean, I think those were significant feats. Then I commissioned, was a commissioned officer, was an ordnance officer. I mean, then had an opportunity to go to flight school, so I flew Black Hawk helicopters for about 6 or 7 years. Um, have a bachelor's degree in business, have a master's in organizational development, have multiple deployments. You know, went to Kosovo as a flight platoon leader, flew in Kosovo, went to Afghanistan as a company commander and logistics officer, and then my most recent one was overseas in Africa working at the U.S. Embassy. Went from private up to currently a major now, and potentially maybe a lieutenant colonel here in a few weeks. I'll believe it when I get the paperwork. But so I say all that to say this, like, that is my broken but brilliant. I mean, in the midst of adversity, I found a way to compartmentalize the dysfunction and still function and still find a way to be productive. So broken but brilliant is just not a saying that I just came up with, although it did come in my head while I was running. It's been a lifestyle of, in spite of stuff, still being able to accomplish and grind. So this morning motivation is a broken but brilliant 2, meaning 3. But I don't want you to look at, though, I'm just venting. This is my healing process. This is part of my therapy to help me grow and become better. So, got a story. You know, I got a lot of stories. I remember when I had my hip surgery, and it was a while before I had hip surgery, so I couldn't run or do any cardio, because I had overgrowth impingement on my bone, which means that what happened is that I fell playing basketball, and since I had overgrowth impingement on my bone protruded out some, and when I fell, it slashed through my muscle. So they had to go in and shave down the bone, and then sew the muscle back up. But in the process of that, you know, I couldn't, while I was waiting to get the surgery, I couldn't run or do anything. This sun's pretty bright, so I'm trying to look for another angle. So I couldn't do anything while I was waiting for the surgery. And I wanted to stay fit and wanted to still condition. So that I took up bike riding. I remember riding my bike, and I had a little fancy bike, and I still got it. I may show a picture of my bike eventually, but bike was nice, and I went and put lights in the spokes and had all kind of light display. So at nighttime, it looked like the 4th of July when I was riding the bikes. Monkey bright lights is what they call it. So the lights was just very decorative, and the faster you go, the different designs and the spokes it created. So it used to motivate me to go fast because I wanted to see or have people see the lights, kind of show off my bike and showing off the lights. And I remember I was riding down one of these busy streets, and I was on the road, um, Waverly Road for those who are in Lansing, Michigan. And I got to the corner um, of Waverly and Michigan, and the light was yellow, and I was trying to beat the light. So my intent was to speed up and try to make the light so I didn't have to stop my momentum. So I was going to go through the light, and I was going to go and get on the curb. But little did I know that wasn't a flat curb. So at the last minute, I seen that it was a curb. It wasn't an entryway for bikes to come up. So I popped my wheel up so I can get over the curb, but I'm going fast. And as the front wheel comes over the curb, but I was going so fast that when the back wheel hit the curb, my bike and my body just flipped over. And I put my arm down, like kind of like this to brace my fall as I fell over the handlebars. And I remember my arm just went limp. And those who watching this video, you're gonna say, man, you accident prone. And yeah, I have. I've been through a lot. So I put my arm down, and it just went limp. And I remember sitting there, and the car, as I mentioned, the light had just turned yellow, and by this time it's red, so cars are coming by, and everybody, attention is going to me because these lights are going off in my spokes. My bike is over there, the wheels just spinning, and it's making designs, and people are driving by, and people say, nice bike, nice lights, are you okay? I'm embarrassed and this and that, so I can't even get my arm up to pick my bike up. So I'm wondering how I'm going to get home. And I remember I scooped down with my it was my right arm, so I scooped down with my left arm to pick up my bike, and just kind of push it up. At the time it was a 7-Eleven there on the corner, and I'm limping, and I have to stop every once in a while because my balance is off. I got scratches and stuff on this, and I see this old childhood friend named George, and he's like, hey Drew, what's going on? I said, nah man, I just fell. He's like, oh, that's good, good hearing from you, good seeing you. And he just walked in the store. And I was like, dude didn't hear me. I said I just fell, but he was in a mission. I guess he thought I was going to ask him for some help or something, but his presentation was very short, and so he came back out the store. He's like, all right man, you take take care of yourself, stay up. I'm looking at that dude like, man, and I'm still about 3 or 4 miles from home. So long story short, I ended up having to call home and get a ride home, and that reminded me, like, sometimes when you fall, the people around you, they see you, but they're not willing to lend you a helping hand. So when you fall, sometimes you got to get up. And I was driven to, and the reason I brought that story up is because I was given to a point this morning, Proverbs 24:16, and it talks about a just man falls 7 times, but he gets up. And then most people have heard that before, but they kind of stop at that stance and just like, a just man falls 7 times, get up. But what they don't go to is the second stanza of that verse, and it talks about the contrary of that. It's like a wicked man falls, and he's overtaken by adversity or by calamity. So the one calamity, it takes down the wicked. So while I was running this morning, and as I got up this morning, when it brought that verse to my head about the just man falling 7 times, what made that man just? It's the fact that he got up, had enough courage to get up, and knew that, God wasn't done with them, that, although he wasn't perfect, that they were broken but brilliant, and still able to get up and to advance on. And what made that man wicked? It's like a lack of faith. They thought that because adversity came, that it was going to overtake them, and that they weren't going to be able to recover, and they didn't have faith enough to know that they can recover, that they were broken but not beyond repair. So what makes you wicked is by staying down in the midst of adversity. And that really hit me. It's like a lot of people, they get through bad times and they justify why they down there. They didn't do this because of this. They didn't do this because of that. And they get to a point in their life where they're making excuses for why they can't do something. But in this scripture, it talks about you being wicked if you don't get up. Like, really think about that. Like, being considered wicked because you giving up. And I think the thing about giving up is not you giving up on yourself, but it's like you're giving up on God. Like, God created you special. He created you with extreme intelligence. I mean, he created you uniquely different than anyone else. I mean, everything about you is gifted. So I think when you give up, it's more an indictment on God than it is on your ability. You saying, God, you can't work with me, and I'm not something that you should be able to use. So it's not become the just man is saying, God, use me in my brokenness. Put me back on the potter's wheel. Mold me into you. So that is, I'm encouraging you all that to get up, to stand up, and walk through adversity and not go through that. So that's even a 10-minute, 11-minute introduction, huh? And I haven't even got into the stories. We left off on me being on active duty, and I was thinking while I was running, it's like, and I keep saying this, and I hope you get this, that the biggest blessing that I've had is for when I need people the most, they're there for me the least. That's one of the biggest blessings that I got. And in the previous Broken but Brilliant videos, I talk about, the three primary relationships, my human relationships in my life. One was a father and was abandoned. Two was a mother and was extremely beaten. And then three was a spouse and was rejected. So my human trinity, so to speak, kind of set me up for a dysfunctional life. And I'm, like I said, I'm not a victim. I think I'm an overcomer because I was able to overcome. So I had to depend on the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So when those human relationships fail, you got to get to a point to where you still feel like there's something in you that's worthy of advancement and worthy of growth. And I'm not saying that I'm dependent on the Father and Holy Spirit as though I've been the Holy One above reproach and everything I did was right. I'm not that naive. I know I've done stuff to wound and hurt other people. So I'm not saying it from the perspective of those three relationships were completely wrong for beating me, abandoning me, or rejecting me. But what I'm saying is that I'm not going to stay in a beaten or abandoned or rejected state. I need to get up. I needed to get up. And the reason I'm becoming this vulnerable on these things is so I can become healed. Meaning that I've seen a lot of videos and there's men that have went through similar things as me, and they get on the other side and they talk about how strong they were and how how much courage it took to do this and to do that. And then they become sort of part of that alpha male community, and they want to tell you all the right things to do without being vulnerable to expose any of their shortcomings or faults. So everybody, when they get on social media, they give you the highlights of their life, the ESPN version, with them going in for a fancy layup or a dunk and show you their strengths, but they're not showing you the air balls. They're not showing you the times they traveled or, they got fouled out of a game or nothing like that. Those are not highlight moments. And I remember, I know a lot of people are struggling in 2020, but 2020 has been an extremely blessed year for me, and that may be another video. And I'll tell you some of on the video. I'll tell you some of the blessings that I have in 2020. So 2020 has been a great year, but I started manifesting this year 5 years ago. I had plans and stuff, so I didn't wait for 2020 to get here to realize what 2020 was going to be. 5 years ago, I said 2020 vision. I'm going to see clearly. I'm going to be able to come out of a lot of the things that I was in. And so I manifested this many years ago. But 2019 was my hard year. I mean, 2019 was my hardest year. And I remember going through the book, You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And then it's an awesome book. an amazing guy who went through a lot in life. But I remember going through that book and then following him, and I felt like something was missing. I mean, he's a great man and has overcome a lot, but I felt like he went through his professional um, adversity, but he kind of omitted a lot of, he kind of glossed over a lot of the stuff that he was going with relationally. I mean, yeah, he talks about his father and his mother some, but he kind of glossed over the failed marriage. You know what I mean? Just kind of like, oh yeah, I was divorced this time, and it's like, oh man, hold up, let's pause here, let's put a comma there, let's navigate through this. Let's not just talk about the professional side. I mean, for me, the professional side is the side I've been, able to navigate the easiest. I won't say easiest, but those who know me, my relationship has been the Achilles heel of my life. It's like it's been one area that hasn't grown or moved forward, and a lot of that's probably contributed to my brokenness and my response to various different rejections and things of that nature. So a lot of people, when you go to these videos, they want to present to you as though they're strong, as though they're all this and that, and they may be, but they won't be vulnerable, or they're not strong enough to uncover some of the weaknesses. So that's kind of where we are right now. With me, it's like my niche is like, in spite of all this stuff that's happened to me, I've still been able to navigate through in life. So it's only my desire to be healed and to be whole that I want to become vulnerable enough to understand the root cause of why I'm feeling things this way. So I remember being down at Fort Stewart, and I remember, as I told you, my little brother had died, and the wife, she refused to come down there, so I'm standing down there by myself. But going back to basic training, my drill sergeant French, was extremely hard on me. And I mean, I did more push-ups and more sit-ups than anybody there, but I was pretty fit when I went in. But I remember at graduation, he walked up to me and my mom after the ceremony was over, and he says, you got a very bright son. He's hard-headed, but you got a very bright son. And that if he ever makes up his mind to fight for the right thing, he's going to be a very powerful man. And that was the first man in my life that ever spoke some positive words in my life, like I'm going to make it. I know when I told people I was going to the Army, they told me I wasn't going to make it because I was hard-headed, I fought a lot, and all this. And here is this drill sergeant who was extremely hard on me, and I thought he didn't like me, told me that, I should go look for the Green and Gold program and apply for it. And that if I was going to be in the Army, make the Army work for me, and don't just have it use my body, but start using my head. So I get down to my duty station. I tell you, my little brother died, and the wife, she refused to come down there. So now I'm just down there by myself, not a victim. But I remember going to the library, and I started to research the Green and Gold because I haven't heard anything about it. And I get to the library, and the lady was very dismissive. She said, "Oh yeah, you just got here. You're private. You don't need to be thinking about it right now." And I was like, well, is there something I can do while I wait? I don't want to get to the last minute and it was something I should have been doing now. And then you telling me, well, I didn't get this done. So she's asked for my social security number, looks everything up. She says, well, you don't even have the right GT score, which is your general technical score, which determines kind of like when you take the ASVAB, it determines what jobs you qualify in the Army. So my GT score was 107, and you need at least a 110 to become an officer. So she says your first thing to do is to increase your GT score. And, she's like, that's not going to be easy. So I was like, man, it's only 3 points. And she said, yeah, but, most people, they do better when they first coming out of school than they do after they've been out of school for a year or so. So long story short, I retook the test and I got 117, kind of the same score I had on my flight school exam, if you remember that. And I don't know if that was a coincidence or whatever. Obviously the one in Fort Stewart came first, and then I went back and she told me to start working on my writing because it was going to be an essay that I have to write. So I started doing that and started writing an essay on why I wanted to become an officer and stuff of that nature. So long story short, I left there with a full scholarship. I remember getting that scholarship back. I got called into the office, and they're like, hey, here's the results. And I got a tier 3 scholarship, which wasn't the top tier, but it allowed me to go to one of the secondary schools. So I couldn't go to the primary universities like a Michigan State or a Michigan or something like that. But the Eastern Michigans were the tier, so I could select any school in the states to go to. And I remember calling home and excited, trying to share this with the spouse. And I said, hey, what are we gonna do? Do you want me to re-enlist and stay in while you go to school, or do you want me to get out and go to school and then try to figure out, because I got this scholarship? And she never would answer, and it just said she didn't want to come here, and she didn't know where they were going to put me next if I stayed in. So I said, well, look, I'll get out, I'll choose a school that's close to home. That way, you can go to school, I can go to school. So the closest school I could find was Eastern Michigan. And so I come back, Eastern Michigan, get set up. They got me a full scholarship. I'm on stipend, and give me an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, and everything. It gets set up, and then go to solicit for the family to come down. And once again, she says, I'm not coming there, and I'm not living there. I'm like, what? So I come from Georgia to Eastern Michigan, which is about an hour from my house, and she still refuses to come live with me. And I remember one time I was being honored at a program, as Cadet of the Year, for making that transition from active duty to college. And remember, I wasn't even good at school, but at this time I have learned some discipline, so I'm able to apply some of the things in my life. And I always had this inquisitive mind, so I'm asking questions in class and all this stuff. So they honor me at this banquet, and I get my wife to come down to go to this banquet with me, and we're dressed up, and they go through the banquet program, and give my little award. And then after that banquet, they turn it into kind of a dance thing. So I remember sitting there as a cadet in my dress uniform and this and that, and the colonels, the professor of military science is up there, and they're out there dancing with their spouses, and they said, Cadet Morton, come on out here and dance, come out and celebrate. So I looked to my wife, and I said, hey baby, let's go dance. And she said, I'm not dancing out there with you. I'm not going out there. You're not going to embarrass me out there. So I was like, wow, kind of taken back. And I really got upset. I was like, what you mean you're not going to dance with me? She said, nah, I didn't come here to dance. My feet hurting too. I'm not going out there. So I go to Colonel and say, hey, sir, sorry, my wife's not feeling well. It's probably better if I just go on and go home and make sure she gets home all right. So we left. I'm creating lies, to cover for some of this rejection. And we leave there. And I said, well, I'll just go drop you off over your friend's house, because obviously you didn't come down here to celebrate this with me. So, and what's going through my head is like, man, this is why that prom thing hurt me so much, because it was like, one, you stand me up for prom and you tell me all you do is go out and dance with this dude, and then you call me this dude name in basic training. Now I'm years later, I've been married to you for 3 or 4 years, and I still have yet to dance with you, like, because you didn't come to Georgia, so I didn't spend much time with her there. And now I'm there being honored, and it's a ball, and you telling me no, you won't dance with me, but this other dude, you danced with him on the first night, so to speak. So it was like, man, it felt like ultimate rejection. And the people viewing this, I'm not saying this is a justification for some of the dysfunction that I had, because I'll get into that. Like, I remember specifically after I dropped her off, I went and picked up his dude Ali Jones, because I had an extra room in my place since she didn't come down there. So Ali moved in, he was my roommate. And I remember said, let's go to the store, let's grab something to drink, man. And I had the purest intentions when I started, but it became corrupted as during the execution of it. Meaning that this is probably like within 45 minutes after dropping her off, we got the liquor store, and we pull up, and I said, Ali, look at that girl over there. I said, I'm gonna go hook you up. So and she was a cute young lady, and I go over there and say, hey, I said, my man wanna holler at you. And she kind of reared her head, looked back a little, and she says, your man, what's up with you? And And that story, my dysfunctions, like I fell for it, and we started talking, and once again, it's down to a destructive pattern of cheating. Um, and I know I was just talking to my life coach, and it says I got to take ownership for it, and I do. Nobody forced me to cheat, and it wasn't like, hey, I just went and cheated with that girl that night. No, but we exchanged numbers, and it developed into a dysfunctional, um, adulterous relationship later. So it wasn't like, hey, I went and got with her that night and that, but it's just, um, it was dysfunction at its finest, and that's what I realized. Like every time that um, I do get rejected, I do find myself in destructive patterns. So it's getting down to the root cause. It's like understanding, like I need to be able to deal with rejection in a more positive state. So I'm not looking for love. If you watch that first video, it's like I talk about my need for validation and my need for love and my need to be accepted. And sometimes even when they come from superficial places or places that weren't supposed to come, um, you can find yourself in destructive patterns. So you got to really get to the authentic version of yourself, and that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm trying to be vulnerable enough so I can get to become authentic, to be whole, and to be things. Um, and this video is getting pretty long, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But I say all this to say this: it's like sometimes, like I was describing on that bike ride, I was already wounded when I got on that bike, um, and I fell and I wounded myself some more. Um, So, and it's kind of a parallel with my life. I was already wounded with being abandoned and broken going into this marriage, and then I got on that bike called marriage, and I fell again, and ended up wounding myself. And that time, my arm was fractured, so it wasn't a pure break, um, but at the same time, it hurts, and you still need to heal from it. So a just man will fall 7 times. Um, I wonder what the Lord gonna say about 107 times. No, but with that being said, you know the story of 409, the cleaner. The reason they came up with the name 409 cleaner, Formula 409, is that it was the 409th formula that actually worked. So they went through the process of developing this formula that was going to be a cleaning solution, and each formula fell short of them being able or being content to accomplish what they wanted. So it wasn't until Formula 409 that they were able to come up with the right ingredients to make it the perfect cleaning solution that they were seeking after. So the thing is, like, what happens if they had gave up after 100? What happens if they had gave up after 200? 300, 400? And you got to be thinking, their mind is like defeated and thinking like, what's next? So they got to 409. What if they stopped at 408? You say, you know what? We're not going to go all the way to 500. Obviously, this is not something we're meant to be. But they continued on, and that 409th formula was it. So when it talks about in that scripture, a just man gets up 7 times, I think 7 is just a reference to say, hey, it's time to get up, and for you to stay down and to fall through adversity is wicked. So if you find yourself staying down, then I'm not calling you wicked. I'm just interpreting what the scripture said. But if you have the ability, just try to get up. You know what I mean? Try to restore or depend on God to restore you. Have faith, God, that He's not done with you yet, and that you are enough. So I think that's enough. I'm coming up on 30 minutes. Broken yet brilliant. Broken but not beyond repair. And we'll pick up. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. As it says, I've been extremely blessed, and I'm looking forward to more blessed years. But I think it's essential that I get to the root cause of finding out in the depths of this brokenness, so I don't take this brokenness into another relationship, or even if God decides to bring these dry bones together, that I can be healed and be whole. So I know I'm prophesying that I'm going to have a healthy relationship, and that may be with or without who this woman is currently with me. So, but I don't get to decide that. I just get to decide that it's time for me to be healed. So you decide the same. Make it a great day.